about experience, and I think that's kind of going to be my running theme through my talk to you tonight, about my background. So I just want to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. It's great to be here, great to see so many people. I'm putting my hand up for Regional Council because I want to give something back to a place I've called home for the best part of 20 years. Apart from a few years in the Waikato and working as volunteers in the Cook Islands with VSA, for the Volunteer Service Abroad, my husband and I spent a few years in the Cook Islands very recently. We've lived in Tauranga since about 2006. And I was also motivated to stand after the retirement of two long-serving regional councillors, Jane Lees and Paul Thompson, extremely capable women that I want to acknowledge tonight and wish them well for their retirement. I want to make sure that women continue to be strongly represented at the decision-making table, and that's one of the reasons I'm also standing. A little bit about me, as you can tell by my name, I'm actually an immigrant. I came to New Zealand with my parents when I was a child, and I'm half Swedish, I'm bilingual. I grew up speaking Swedish, and I was one of those kids that had their hands slapped because I couldn't speak English when I first went to primary school, but you can tell I can speak English now. I still speak Swedish sometimes, and I get very drunk. I'll sing a song, an ABBA song in Swedish, but I have to be very drunk to do that. So a little bit more about me. I have an academic background in political science, law and economics. My economics background is because I studied political science at Victoria University. I was lucky enough to get a teaching assistantship to go to a top 10 university in the States to do a Masters in Economics, which I did. I wasn't very good at maths, but I learned very quickly about quantitative analysis. And also what's really important when you're on a governance table, particularly in council, is about trade-offs. And it really, as an economist, you really have to work through trade-offs. Came back to New Zealand, and as a sucker for punishment, decided to go and do a law degree, as well as have children. And the kids all turned out all right, but it was quite a process. So I entered the corporate legal world for a short while, and then decided to go back into the public sector and joined local government. And I've pretty much been working in and out of local government ever since. So I now have my own consultancy. I've also held senior leadership and project management roles in local government in Auckland, Waikato and Wellington, and also now here in Tauranga. In Tauranga, I've managed regional development, transport, urban planning projects and teams at Western Bay County District Council. I was a senior manager there. When I first met Stuart, I came down from Auckland and took the group manager role in policy and planning at Western Bay. I did that for about 5 years. And I've also worked as a consultant with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council and also as an acting manager for regional development at the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. So I know the council very, very well. And most recently, I was a senior principal at Becker Limited, providing strategic advisory services to central government and local government, and also working primarily a lot in the Pacific. Internationally, in the Pacific in particular, I've led projects on climate change, infrastructure and environmental policy, and that kind of experience when you work in some of these really far-flung places across the Pacific, places like Nauru, Niue, and I've been to all of the islands and the Cook Islands now, it really confronts you about diversity of needs and interests of people, and also the confronting realities of climate change. I'm also deeply committed to our local community. In Tauranga, I chair the Board of Trustees for Takatimu House, which provides transitional housing for homeless men. And I mentor emerging leaders through the Social Link and Volunteer Mentoring Program. One of my key priorities, I guess, is around what Stuart's talking about, is local government reform. I believe strongly that we need some really constructive conversations with central government about the future of local government and the form and function of regional councils. But before we jump into solutions, we have to be really, really clear about what's broken and what role councils should play in building prosperous, sustainable communities. And we need really experienced, qualified people to engage in those conversations. And I've been through an amalgamation before in Auckland, and I know the risks. There are fiscal challenges, and more importantly, to ensure that local community voices are heard. Here in Tauranga, Western Bay, we've been planning for growth since early 2006. I've been part of that work since 2006. But while our population has exploded, infrastructure has struggled to keep up. On top of that, climate change is bringing more flooding, erosion and water quality issues. And we need to work with iwi, local government, emergency services and central government to ensure sound science-based responses. Now, just in terms of my answer to the questions, I'm going to answer number 3. And it just follows on from what I've just been saying. I think one of the most important activities for the Regional Council is to engage in that conversation about the future of local government, as Stuart was alluding to. I'm not necessarily against the idea of amalgamation. As I said, I've been through it in Auckland, but it's a great training for consultants, for a start. It costs a lot of money to start amalgamating councils, so we've got to be really clear about why you would want to do that and who is going to pick up the services and the functions of the respective councils that you're amalgamating. And I think it's particularly risky when it comes to regional councils, because I think that can so easily be subsumed into some of the more dealings of the city council. So there's some real issues there, and also the loss of local community voice as well. The second priority, I think, is around smart urban growth. I was the convener of the Smart Growth strategy and have been involved with Smart Growth since about 2006. And there's some great stuff there. Go on the website, there's some really good work that's gone into spatial planning and planning for this region for the next 30 to 50 years. The biggest issue we've had is implementation. Implementation. You have no idea how frustrating it is to lead multidisciplinary teams, keen professional staff to develop this work, underpinned by science and research and professionalism, to have it sit there and not be implemented. And I'm hopeful that this new regional deal with central government might actually lead to something. For me, that's a big priority, to push that work forward and get some infrastructure on the ground. And the third one, really, for me, is also adapting to climate change and making sure that we are able to have the infrastructure that we need to deal with issues like flooding, tsunami, emergency services, all the things that we've talked about tonight. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and hopefully we'll chat again a little bit more later.